Maybe you were there. Really? Nobody. You will be telling your child.
Oh, that one was in a bank.
Does it allow?
Oh, that one was in a bank.
Does it allow?
So I see your chat. Yeah. I am here to know. Bora yuko kwea.
The unit.
Bora yuko kwea. Yuko kwea.
Oh, you.
Nice. Hey.
What's in Japan?
Hey, these are photos. I hope it's been taken. Hey. Mommy, oh. Si ndio tumeshinda nikiwaambia nyamsi. That's what you guys ilikuwa don't deserve that. Koto. Nyinyi mnaendelea na but most of this you are smiling while talking. Kwa yako ndio itatokea vibaya. Hey. So maybe what?
When the guests arrive, I'll request you all.
For not smiling, Mama is
Everybody get roll. Say go, pass me by. Baby, don't mind when you see, come give me that. Jump up on my body like animal. Dance make you feel like animal. I go lock you down like criminal. One touch feeling like 1,000,000. People just say what you like a cinema. Wine bandit like animal. Make sure you do nobody else. Baby, don't mind when you see, come give me that. Jump up on my body like animal. Dance make you feel like animal. I go lock you down like criminal. Feeling like 1,000,000. People just say what you like a cinema. Wine bandit like animal. Make sure you do nobody else.
Just a reminder, kindly ensure our phones are on silent mode. The bathrooms can use the back door. Please let's avoid passing in front here when the session is going on. Thank you. Just a reminder, when our guests arrive, kindly please stand so we can do the national anthem first.
They tell me this, they tell me that, they say no this, say she a bad. Anytime I can, and I put that, no rubber band, no rubber band. Anytime I put down, she show me that, I know put down, she tell my time. I tell you, I'm happy that, okay, you say everything I do is for my woman. Anything I do, you talk, I go do. Me and the best, me and I got care for my people. Loving you, my ritual. Forget the that mission and stay. You give me love, so romantic. All of the moon, you like Put it on, stop me. Get it up on the floor. Get it on like you might slow. See me and I'm up slow. You know they catching up so. Say anything I do is for my anything I know when you talk I go do. Me and the best thing I get for my big fans. Loving you, my I'm not the summer. I'm not the busy. I'm not the because I'm my body. Okay, I'm my body. Oh, all of a sudden, she said, yeah, I'm because I'm my body. Okay, I'm my body. Say anything I do is for my woman. Anything I do, you talk, I go do. Me and the best friend I got there for my big fans. Loving you like my drive. How do you go cry? Go cry, come on. In the one with the front. Go cry, how do you go cry? Go cry, stay my baby. I keep my one for the front. I'm standing up with the ghost.
If you did not register in the KSG information sheet this morning when you are coming in, they'll be coming around. Please make sure you fill them. Thank you.
Make a give you something, make a even mix some, but then I walk out. You didn't take, they feel like da, 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 they feel like da, 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 they feel like da, da.
I wanna be in your life until the night is over. I wanna hold you so tight, coming closer. It's been a hell of a ride, but every single moment you were there by my side. Whenever I'm broken, you make me feel whole. Whenever I'm broken, you're there for my soul. Wherever you are, girl, that's where I call my home. Whenever you're down, I'll be letting you go. I want to be dancing with you forever. You see through the storm, take me as I am. Baby, it's magic and you can't put together. I make I just love you, hold you for life, hold you for life, hold you for life, hold you for life. I make I just love you, hold you for my hand, 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 hold you for my hand.
Okay.
nothing with person never see. I'm nothing with person never see. Forget it, I say fashion. When you see expecting, but I will buy the agent. I take out to the person. They tell me that I get it. I'm in the Sunday, yes, sir. And I need a day as I, yes, sir. Respect is a secret, even though I know that's special. We know what does our do. We look the body, body. I can't something, I can't something. Go back, I can't something. You go jump and you never go. Should I because you said I never go. I look you in my eyes. I shall look sick, I go. But more I look sick, I go. When you look good, big till I go. I'm on my back, I go. But then you are gone. But you tell me the best you can do. See that people jack on my back. When no one does hurt you. When look at body, body. I can't something, I can't something. Go back, I can't something. I'm missing expecting. But I want my be expecting. I think I can get that seat. They tell me that I get it. I'm in the Sunday, yes, sir. I know you don't go as I am, sir. Respect is a secret, even though I know that's special. Anybody, when no one does hurt you. Anybody, when look at body, body. I got something, I got something. Go back, I got something.
This beat ain't normal.
When I call you, no answer. I said we can call you some more. You ain't give me no choice, so very soon I go happy up at the dama. Then you had no time dress, so you last night at the club. Even though I have a dark shade on, I was looking at you all night long. Down in the middle of the street. How did I ever let you be? Oh no, why did I do this Tennessee? Yeah, I don't know what to know about me. And I just want to make somebody. Don't want to do what you can do about me. No, but I know about me. And I don't know what to know about you. As you see me, so I know about you. God, you get some right to you. You go take my time. Something now we want to. I'm hard to talk about something. Love, 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 love. Just fall in love. Must be like something. Love doesn't really matter. Love is the middle of the street. I would ever let you be. Oh no, why did I do this Tennessee? And I don't know what to know about me. And I just want to be somebody. Don't want to do it to go back. No, I got to know. And I don't know about you. As you see me, so I know.
Excuse me. Our guest will be arriving in the next 2 minutes. Please, let's be ready.
can take this person. I can take this life. It's trying to me. Play with you. Say you're down to me. I'm too. Every little sister, so you get out of on hard. Should we kind of kept it close before we still apart? It's easy to me. Think it just focus on myself up for what I kind of should be. But I'm in the middle of this shit. I did the evolution. Oh no. Why did I do this evolution?
I don't know what I'm about. Don't want to lose it to nobody, no. And I don't know what I'm about you.
Kindly, let's be standing. National anthem, please.
Afrika Mashariki tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani zetu ili tumutumikie yetu.
Let's be seated, please. Sorry, pardon. Mr. Said Omar, Staff Secretary, will give us a prayer.
Good morning. I will recite Surah Al-Fatih in English. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. All praises be to Allah, the Lord of the world. Gracious, most merciful, Master of the day of judgment. You alone we worship, and you alone we seek for help. Of those whom you have bestowed favor on them, and not the way of those who earn your anger, nor those who are astray. Amen.
Dr. Koris Singoy, Principal Secretary, State Department for Kenya and Somalia. Dignitaries, good morning. I wish to invite you to the... My name is Otundo Stephen Otundo, Secretary for Ministry of Foreign Affairs and State Department for the Foreign Affairs. And for this session, I'm the co-chair for the third secretaries. It is a distinct pleasure to stand in front of you today. Without fail, let me first introduce Ambassador Arnold Square to the stage to give his remarks.
Asante sana. Mheshimiwa Katibu Mkuu, Wizara ya Mambo ya Nje, rafiki yangu Dr. Singoy, viongozi wote, mabibi na mabwana, wanafunzi wote, hamjamboni. Mko poa? Sana. Mko poa tena? Jambo la kwanza nikipenda kusema nimefurahi sana kwa kukuja hapa Kenyan School of Governance kwa mkutano muhimu sana. Mkutano ni muhimu kwa sababu lazima wanasiasa, wanadiplomasia, wanakubwa wanamasikiza sauti ya vijana. Sauti ya vijana nini? Sauti ya mustakabali. Mnakubali? Sawa. Tuendelee au tusiendelee? Tuendelee. No, and I'll switch to English. But I'm very pleased to be here. And what I said in Kiswahili, I mean it also in English. I came with my daughter Juliet, and Juliet is also part of the Model of the United Nations in her school. She won an award, and I said, if I cannot convince my daughter of what we're doing, I am failing. So she's my true advisor today. Very short, because I think the point is, together with a PhD, to you and try to answer your questions. But we're doing this summit, and I think it is not Africa-France summit. It is summit, meaning Kenya and France, but also the world, to have a conversation on how you create a path for the African continent, together with partners, to develop sustainably. And let me say, maybe before we get into the details, that it has been, and it is still, a very trying experience. Why? Because I think we, as French, have learned to take some of the philosophy in the way we conduct our business. Usually you say, when you want to go fast, you go alone. When you want to go long, you go together. And that's exactly what we're doing together with our Kenyan friends in trying to create a path for Africa to have a conversation about partnership. So I must say, we are integrate the Ubuntu philosophy into what we're doing, you know. I am because you are. And I think that's a little bit, I think, the spirit of this Africa Forward Summit. And I want to commend and appreciate the role that our Kenyan friends and partners have been doing. We couldn't do it without Kenya, and we couldn't do it with the friendship of Kenya. Partnership needs to be nurtured. We realize with Kenya, we use and common ideas. I think one is the respect for the multilateral order, or the rule-based order we were discussing a little bit before. And I think it's partly relevant for you who are in the model of the United Nations, because and it is fair to criticize, and it is fair to advocate for reform. It is also very dangerous to have a world with no law and order, because we know what it is. And so I think France and Kenya see eye to eye on the need to make it more fair, to make it more just, to listen more to the voice of Africa. And so the summit we are together will have, how you say, an extension. Because what we're going to decide and conclude in Nairobi in May will be brought up to the G7 summit a little bit later in Evian in France. And President Ruto has been invited to speak on behalf of the African continent during that summit. And so we, since the last couple of years, have worked together in matters of climate change, preserving biodiversity, or global health. And I think our leaders decide that we align on a number of issues, but it's incumbent on us to work more together. And it has been a very transformative journey, whereby, a country, we don't like to be called a country from the north. We like to be called France a balancing power. But our building bridges with an African country, a leader of the global south in matters of climate, in matters of reform of the international architecture. And so we're very happy. We're very happy also, and I will conclude on that we're not doing a very traditional heads of state and government conference. We have decided together that we need to bring the voice of the young people in this summit. So I think today we are part of the summit, by the way. So we will be listening to you, we'll try to answer, we'll try to incorporate whatever concerns, remarks, comments you'll be telling us. But even in the summit itself, we'll create space for the young people of France, the young people of Africa, the young people of Kenya. We'll be doing a youth event. We will host actually the first part of the summit in the University of Nairobi. We will have a sport engagement, and we will have a creative industry engagement. So as much as we need our leaders to guide us, we want to listen to the voice of 70% of the population of the African society. So with those very remarks, I'm truly delighted to be here in front of you to listen to the PS and to try to answer your question. Merci beaucoup. Asante sana.
Asante sana, Balozi. Now, today we're the KSG, and KSG is our host. And in most homes, the host must invite the guest. So I wish to invite Mr. Peter Quest to come on stage and invite our Principal Secretary.
All right, good morning. My name is Peter Quest. On behalf of our Director General, Professor Noura Mohammed, who would have loved to be here but has called for official engagement, and he was with us the whole day yesterday. I want to appreciate and welcome all of us to Kenya School of Government. Bona PS, we want to appreciate your presence this morning, and we want to thank you so much for gracing and partnering to support these amazing young leaders. So just to make it short is that you're always welcome at Kenya School of Government, and we want to think about institutionalization of this program. We want to make sure that you feel at home at Kenya School of Government as your place of host, so that anytime you're holding high-level youth engagement, Bona PS, this becomes a home. So thank you so much, and welcome to Kenya School of Government. Asante sana.
It is all my esteemed pleasure.
Ambassador Anosuge, and I think the name is not Sugwet, it's not Sugut. Ambassador Anosuge, our dear friend Nenoma, my esteemed friends, I see many of them here. My friend Roni Osumba, whom I will speak a bit about later. Rob Barnett, the founder and CEO of Shujas. Peter Richard Quest, the representative of the Director General of the Kenya School of Government. The president of KMUN, my friend Simon, the leadership of the 3rd secretaries from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, led by Deborah Osia, Distinguished friends, ladies and gentlemen, hamjambo. Hamjambo tena. So it is truly an honor to join you today at the 25th Annual Kenya Model United Nations Conference 2026. First and foremost, I should like to commend the Kenya Model United Nations, including its current and past leadership, for their remarkable dedication over the past 2.5 decades in nurturing young leaders and cultivating a culture of dialogue, diplomacy, and global citizenship amongst Kenyan youth. I want specifically to mention my friend Ronnie Osumba, who 25 years ago had the vision to bring together young people, young students, to think about global challenges and what young people could do to respond to global challenges, and thereby giving birth to KMUN. I truly commend you, my brother. Your vision is alive and well. And to those of us who are here today, it is important for you to reflect on this and to think about where you'll be 25 years from now, and whether it will be said of you that in the year 2026, you founded something that would still be alive in the year, I think that would be what, 2051 or thereabouts. I think that's a teachable moment. So KMUN has evolved into one of the premier youth leadership platforms in the region, and platforms such as this demonstrate the meaningful engagement of young people in global affairs is not merely symbolic, but it is vital to the sustainability and thriving of the global system. Africa has the youngest population in the world today, with around 532 million young people aged between 15 and 35. And so when you say the Africa voice, you're talking about the young peoples of Africa voice. It's not the voice of the Wazee, it's the voice of the Vijana that represents the true voice of Africa. This demographic reality presents both responsibility and an extraordinary opportunity. Young people are the drivers of innovation, entrepreneurship, technological advancement, and social transformation. Their ideas, creativity, and energy are indispensable in addressing global challenges ranging from climate change to digital transformation and peace and security. The Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs has made a keen effort to broaden stakeholder engagement, to include youth as critical actors in the implementation of Kenya's Foreign Policy 2024. Ask whether youth is a specific, but as a specific focus area of. When you look across each of the digital diplomacy, global governance, peace and security, that are germane to youth. And that's why a relationship with France, you will appreciate that speaks to the interests of young people, the interest of job creation, with France having well over 100. Look at the development side of France, on youth issues that we are building. If you look at Italy, the work we are doing together in Malindi, in San Marco, through the cooperation between Kenya and Italy on space. I can go amongst others. When you look at When you look at state, a great deal of them are not just looking at are not just looking at semi-skilled labor, our economy. This is skilled labor, our economy. This is the long and the short. This is the long and the short over again. My brother Ambassador Ano has spoken a bit. About this. Best to the interests of Africa in the best to the interests of Africa in the areas of interests of Africa in the areas of artificial landscape and so there are opportunities there. There are opportunities there. There are opportunities are clearly at the Vatican. This erosion of trust is something that at the Vatican. This erosion of trust is something that we have seen over the last 20 years. But that without trust, 20 years. But that without trust, you cannot have a cohesive. So at the vertical begins in government, you see that loss of trust begins in government. You see that loss of trust across. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is. We want to argue that this is the time for us to have a conversation at the fabric of trust, so that we can as you sit as KMUN and as you reflect towards the future, important for you, number one, to be aware. You must build a level of awareness. Build a level of awareness yourself about who you are and what you can do today, tomorrow, and to develop an acute sense of awareness about partly your responsibility. I know that a lot of our experiences and engaging. I want to encourage you to deepen your sense of awareness. Your awareness both spatially and temporally in terms of time. What season are we in? These are critical things. And what is happening in other geographies. Having developed a certain level of awareness, we must develop agency. What can you do? Ronnie 25 years ago did something today responsible for why we are gathered, or is today convening us. What can you do? What agency do you have? Because agency, my friends, is what the world is crying for. Agency is not categories of people. It's not for men alone. It's not for women alone. It's not for persons of my age alone. It is for all of us. There's something that children can do. There's something that young people can do. Not tomorrow, today. Okay? So that is my challenge. We must develop a sense of agency and urgency. Indeed, it was Theodore Roosevelt speaking in France in 1910, I think in the city of Sorbonne, when he gave his famous speech on the critic, where he argued that it's not really the critic that counts, not the man or woman who points out how the strong man has stumbled, or how the doer of deeds could have done them better. But he argues that the credit is to the man or woman on the arena, whose face is marred by dust and blood and sweat. That is the person who gets the credit, is the person who is able to exercise agency, who is at the or in the arena today, not tomorrow. And lastly, let me point to the need then for responsibility. as you develop this awareness, as you engage and become an agent of transformation and change, you must do it with the full awareness of your responsibility and your responsibility to others, and particularly to embrace the notion of doing no harm. Because absent this understanding of responsibility, we become reckless and disorderly. States must become responsible. Even so, both the rich and the poor states, both the powerful and the weak states must become responsible. When we do not exercise responsibility with power or with the roles that we are playing, we become reckless and we invite disorder, which is the foundation for basically a breakdown of social order. And so I encourage us to also be responsible. On those many remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much and to wish you such a great KMUN. My friend Peter Quest has said that we need to institutionalize this collaboration. I agree. The State Department for Foreign Affairs stands ready to encode our partnership, in an agreement, a partnership between KMUN, KSG, and the State Department, so that we can build a program beyond the conference, a program that is multi-yeared and is able then to respond to some of the aspirations of our young diplomats. Asanteni sana, and God bless you.
I think we haven't really clapped well enough for what. And now it's my opportunity to invite our panelists. Africa France Pre-Summit High Level Youth Segment. Kindly.
Good morning, everyone. It's an So in order to have more engagement with the youth, we'll try and go through the panel discussion as quickly as possible, and then we'll have our question and answer session. So let me start. Thank you. Okay. So for the first panelist of the day is Dr. Energizing. He has served as a senior legal advisor to the Deputy President, the now President of the Republic of Kenya, where he provided counsel and guidance on intergovernmental relations and coordination of international development partnerships with a focus on open governance and rule of law. Some of the roles he has held include serving as a litigation director at Katiba Institute and the founding director at the Center for Minority Rights Development. Dr. Sinoe is an international law expert with over 2 decades of legal experience both in Kenya and abroad. Fun fact about him is that we have noticed he has recently picked up the sport of fencing. So, karibu please to the panel. Yes, sir, this is the problem. Thank you. For the next one, the next one. So, our next speaker, Ambassador Arnaud Souquet. His Excellency serves as the Ambassador of the French Republic to Kenya and Somalia and Permanent Representative to the UN. He He has previously served as a political advisor to the European Union Special Representative for the Horn of Africa, and been a deputy head of mission in Addis Ababa. He has over 25 years experience in public service. Fun fact about him, which we saw, is he's fluent in Kiswahili and Arabic as well. Karibu. Yes, please. So our next speaker is certainly taking steps to ensure that young Africans are the ones moving first. Mr. Eric Lunani is the founder and CEO of Harman Group, where he leads research in frontier technologies, including the continent's first palm biometrics. He works in partnership with the State Department for Foreign Affairs, leading the development of the Autonomous Advancement Initiative, a framework that embeds youth at the center of tech diplomacy and mobilizes the next generation to drive the future of AI and blockchain for critical sectors like education. Mr. Lunani, please. Right at the end. So next we have Miss Vicky Gadhoni. She's a final year psychology student at Kenyatta University and an active member of KMUN. She currently serves as the head of communications in the General Assembly Bureau and the executive and chief of staff at her university, where she supports the society at large. She's passionate about mental health advocacy and expanding youth participation in diplomacy and global governance. A fun fact about her is that she speaks Japanese fluently and considers herself a Japanese citizen at heart. Welcome, Vicky. Last but not least, we have Mr. Simon Kimuhu. He is your Secretary General for the 25th session of KMUN and a final year Bachelor of Law student at KU School of Law. He's an accomplished moot court advocate and youth leader. Simon also serves as the Deputy President of the 14th All Kenya Moot Court Competition and has gained professional experience through internships at Denton's, Hamilton, Harrison, and Matthews, and Amnesty International Kenya, reflecting his strong commitment to human rights advocacy, youth diplomacy, and leadership in legal and governance spaces. Fun fact about him is that he sings and is in the Kenya Conservatoire Choir. Yeah, maybe I can change the mic. So, is it okay now? It's worse. Okay, I'll take that one. Okay, so since nobody introduced me, I can also tell you a fun fact about myself. I sing, and when I was in uni, I was in a band called Thank You. And just to give you a background, allow me to read a brief on our discussion today. So in preparation for the Africa Forward Summit that will be hosted in May in Nairobi, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs saw it fit to engage the youth and have this platform with KMUN. Our discussion will largely be on two topics: youth innovation and digital transformation, climate action, energy transition, and green industrialization. As the PS mentioned earlier, approximately 70% of the population in sub-Saharan Africa is under the age of 35. That is over 532 million young people who are active in this space. Africa's digital economy is also on a sharp upward trajectory, projected to contribute $712 billion to the GDP by 2050. It's therefore important that we're engaged and informed in this space. So start with the Principal Secretary. Kenya has certainly positioned itself as a regional leader in digital innovation and emerging technologies. These are tools that we use to drive the national agenda, as well as accelerate the achievement of the SDGs. In the context of Africa-France cooperation, how is the government of Kenya partnering with the French Republic specifically for the youth development in this area? Please, sir.
Thank you very much, Deborah. I think first to underscore that Kenya, of course, is a leader in science, tech, and technology. I think there are many examples to give, and Lunani here can give you sort of a better sense of it. But we have a very robust tech ecosystem in Kenya. Very many young people are playing a role in that space. And government has put in place policies and regulations to enable the, I think, optimization of this sector. Within the context of our partnership with France, I did allude to the work or the support that we are receiving from France towards the University of Nairobi to expand and modernize the university's science complex. And that includes, obviously, the technological underpinnings of that. And Ambassador Suge can speak to that. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
But maybe just...
Okay, yeah.
No, thank you, PS, and I totally concur with what you said. Kenya and Nairobi being a very tech-savvy place that attracts a lot of attention globally. And you allude to it when PS, one of the most sustainable investments we believe we can make is to invest in human capital, to invest in people. Why? Because as much as physical infrastructure is needed, and we won't deny it, but investing in people is really a two-way street, because you invest in the capacity of people to innovate, find solutions that are not nationals in essence. You know, when we're talking about tech and AI, it doesn't really matter where you're from. The question is, did you have an enabling environment for you to innovate and create solutions? So we believe that this investment we're doing together in the University of Nairobi will enable innovation and creativity in Kenya, but also globally. And that's why we have this partnership within the University of Nairobi, together with the best science and engineering schools in France, in Paris, some of them being ranked fairly high in the Shanghai ranking. And we're doing together a new science and engineering complex within the University of Nairobi in Chiromo. And this new complex aims at training the engineers and the scientists of tomorrow to contribute, as it has been said, to the green industrialization in Africa. But Africa industrialized is good for Africa, but I think it's good for the world, and so that's our modest contribution to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Balozi. You've answered actually the question I was about to ask, so that speeds things along. So, Mr. Lunani, could you tell us a little bit of what you do and what your role will be at the upcoming Africa Forward Summit?
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to prefix this. I've had the privileged opportunity of working with the PS at the office. I could tell you, like, internally, his efforts towards the youth, it's incredibly, he's deeply invested. Over the past, like, year or so, we've worked together. We came sort of like, to come to agree, what kind of framework can we use to give, like, young people a platform where they could be able to at least advocate for some of the emerging challenges that most of us are taking for granted. For one, we've heard a lot about this whole thing surrounding AI. It's a buzzword, but now there's like a really, really critical reason for young people to convene around attracting investments, attracting talent as well in the development of this. So that's led up to obviously the cooperation. We'll be organizing a side event during the Africa France Summit. We'd like to welcome young people. We're gonna select about 15 of the top entrepreneurs. Then which we curate the room with the right kind of partners to sort of like enable and push. So a lot of gratitude obviously to the State Department and obviously France for helping convene this. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And if I could follow up with a question for you, what do you think is at stake if young Africans are excluded from shaping the technologies, the rules, and the infrastructure that will define their future?
Okay. I think most of us, when we think of AI, we think of maybe ChatGPT, at sort of like at the macro level. Some of us say, I'd rather you check out like my gallery or my messages, but don't look at my ChatGPT history. So it just shows and speaks to like how personal these technologies become, mostly because they don't show up as traditional tech, but these are things that talk to you, they complement you, they tap into sort of like the emotional side of being human. But what we don't realize, these are decision engines. They're offering suggestions. Most of the time, it's, I want to write an email of this form. I'd like you to come up with an email. And you just approve and say yes. But you will never really understand where the context of that is coming from. You know. So it's a suggestion that you accepted. There's a sovereignty crisis, and it's going to shape microeconomics. Whether we are going to ask, where would I like to invest? You're going to ask the system. Meaning it's fully capable of controlling the capital in a nation if it's widely used by the population, which obviously calls that we need to be able to come to a point where we develop local capacity. Africa today, Mr. Ambassador, has 0 models globally. And we receive 3% of global AI investments, which largely speaks to the kind of crisis we are headed for. And it's one of sovereignty, one that I believe it has very few freedom fighters. So that's what I hope to be able to cooperate with the Principal Secretary for him to enable these kinds of platform where we could welcome you guys to be able to, you know, really push this forward.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
I thought that's such an important question because we are dealing with an innovation that is moving very rapidly ahead of regulation. There are very few regulations that not only enable but also ensure that at the global level it's even worse because these innovations are not being designed for states. The rules in global governance and in the recent past, the United deployment of AI, for example, in Nairobi in November last year, we did. And so there are many showcases or use cases.
Thank you so much. I think it's inviting us to think about AI from your lived experience as a university student. And any do you think the government or governments in general can give that would make the difference?
the difference. That question, Deborah. I'm sure as we've had going on between the Kenyan and French governments in terms of sponsorship towards youth and the new ideas that they have. So among the ideas that I have loved being mentioned is the establishment, the kind of like expansion of the science complex at the UON. So with that, some of the challenges that we find is limited access to there's digital innovation spaces where there's limited innovation labs and research facilities, and even internet access in some areas where you find that about only 38% of Africans in general have good access to good internet. So that ability of the youth in general to be able to specialized training where
global imbalances. How will France ensure that the high standards required by the global north do not become SMEs? Specifically, is France prepared to lead in establishing a sustainability transition? Nigeria's pioneering adoption of Nigeria to Security Council.
Thank you so much.
I wasn't prepared to answer a question about Nigeria, but let me try. 7 is partly relevant. As you mentioned, France, and I think it's one of the important elements into 7 countries, which are the but will take place here in Nairobi is an important milestone. And I think Kenya has a special responsibility because Kenya G7 works with the G7 members and the chair of the G7 to invite partners to contribute to the work stream. And so Kenya has been invited, and it's not only at the heads of state, but I think Buanapias we call a Sherpa, meaning he'll be part and parcel of the working stream of the G7. I think you'll go to France even this month. And one of the main issues that we want to bring from Nairobi to France is this very issue of the reform of the financing for development. And we cannot do it, only as France. That's why we want a strong voice of Africa in Nairobi. That Africa comes up with some strong, united proposal. And so it's critical, I think, it's during the COVID times. I believe this issue for development will be critical. We know that public funding overall, globally, is dwindling, and the needs for what you mentioned, green transition, are there. How can we mobilize public and private funding? What are the mechanisms? And I believe can bear some outcome, hopefully, that will be taken into the G7 context
of Nigeria. First, will be here in a few months forward some of the challenges that you have raised. What your question is asking is, you're seeking to problem on the global south. And I think it's a very important conversation. It's a conversation we've been grappling with since the Africa Climate Summit. We took that conversation back to Paris, and now it's back again to Africa. I want to assure you that it's back again to Africa. I want to assure you that the idea of just transition is to say that capital from the north and with technology from the north to Africa being able to access its energy needs forward, to carbon-based energy sources, which of course will lead to more pollution, with the consequence that our climate will just burn more, and that the climate crisis that we are dealing with will be exacerbated. And so we're trying to sort of have a conversation around how we can share this burden in a fair fashion. And I think your question invites us to think more concretely about, about some of these issues. And we look forward to carrying this conversation forward with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, PS. Thank you, Ambassador. I had seen a hand from a gentleman there. A gentleman first, the boy child after the girl child.
Hello, good morning. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your time. And my name is Ian Kanku. I'm from KCA University, pursuing a bachelor's in international business management. And my question is directed to the board, and I go mainly by the topic where we're talking about empowering the global south. And since you've talked about the youths, some of us, basically myself, and I know many others from here, are looking into startups and want to business orient startups, and are really engaged in terms of finding funding and knowing what are the necessary skills to progressively establish our startups into international levels, in that we can also be globally recognized in terms of our own businesses, and creating also more job opportunities for our fellow citizens. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody want to react to that?
I think I want to just focus on one element, which is on the fact that a lot of young innovators face the challenge of intellectual property protection, particularly in the tech space, where young people innovate, is appropriated, and then suddenly you realize that it's being deployed at scale. Meanwhile, you have not been engaged, you've not been compensated, etc., etc. So it's the area of intellectual property protection is one of the areas that we are working very hard on, under World Intellectual Property Organization, within WTO, to ensure that young innovators' intellectual is protected. That is the one thing that I can say that we are working on. Thank you very much.
Yes. Very important point, which is financing and funding for young innovators. But de-risking, I think, the cost of capital for young entrepreneurs when it comes to startup. You'll go to the bank and they say, oh, this is too risky, or what's the question you'll be, or the answer you'll be given if you go to a regular bank, and banks work on risk assessment, and I don't blame them. So we've been trying, and it's an attempt. So and I think you mentioned the Digital Africa program in sort of giving comfort to some of the banks to be less risk adverse when it comes to funding young innovators and creatives. Because you cannot, and I think you've done it also on your side, I think the Hustler Fund was also an attempt in that regard, just to compensate, the first losses, because there will be innovation. It's not any innovation will thrive. You have to, and you have to take that into account. So I believe, the banks being public, multilateral, private, commercial, just, convincing them what are the mechanisms we can put in place to fund startup like yours, but you don't go to a bank and say, no, bring your collateral, or this is too risky. So I think that's an important conversation we'll be having.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll be looking forward to it. There was one lady who raised her hand very high. I think that can be, yes, you. That can be our second last question, because there's something I would like us to wrap up before we wrap up the session.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Kayla Sifa, and interestingly, I am the delegation of France for the EcoSoc committee. Thus, I had to channel my question today. So as an entrepreneur and the Kenyan team lead for an international organization, I have seen Africans gain so many opportunities. But then how else can we position ourselves to be influencers? We get so many opportunities from the global north, but most of the times we barely make it to global conversations. So how can we as the youth better position ourselves for global conversations, policy making, and systems change? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I don't think I can answer a question from France to France, so I think I'll defer to Kenya.
Well, thank you very much. Again, a very valid question. I think first is to acknowledge that global conversations are actually happening here. You no longer need to go out there to have the global conversation. That's why French Africa Forward is happening here. Okay? That's also why we are doing more to bring more global convenings here, convenings that have an impact on different sectors. We had a convening on safe schools, for example, just a few months ago. We've had a couple of convenings on the digital, on the digital sector right here in Nairobi. We are hosting a huge investment summit here in Nairobi next week, and on it goes. So first, we are densifying the place of Nairobi as a convener. And that already gives you platform. So the issue is, the platform is there, are you organized? And that's why earlier on I was having a discussion on agency. So there is real need for young people to get organized. Second, within the AU infrastructure, in the pursuit of implementing Agenda 2063 of the African Union, the AU is also really doing a great deal of convenings. And in the recent past, we've hosted as AU a joint meeting between AU and the EU, for example, AU and India, AU and China, AU and the United States, amongst others. So those partnership convenings, some of them are happening here, others are happening within different capitals of Africa and the host, the host nations. In some, there are opportunities for young people to participate in those partnership meetings, but that also requires early planning in terms of identifying the opportunity and beginning to work with us at the ministry to be able to ensure that you can be able to seize those opportunities. But yes, we're more than happy to have a discussion. If you're looking at specific ideas for participation, I think we can be able to have that conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So a gentleman, oh, sorry.
I think this will be incredibly relevant
like as mentioned, like he's actively involved in this. So I mentioned this during May 11th. There's gonna be an event, especially for like the young guy who asked regarding the opportunities for funding, right? Like I think we need to stop the whole approach of asking at least the state, what can you offer us opportunity, you know? So like you mentioned, coming up with the solution first, then we could ask what they could supply. What backing does the state have? What leverage does the state have? They can convene presidents, they can convene people in the development finance and all forms of people. They have that convening power. So I think as young people, that's especially what I'm centered on. How could we create an independent sort of like platform that's not government, but then partner with government to
provide an enabling environment. I believe it is also important to have youth-to-youth conversations. And I don't like, this whole, I think we need to go beyond, kazi kwa vijana, pesa kwa wazee. We need to have youth-to-youth conversations, and yeah, exactly. And globally, I'm not saying only in the Kenyan context. And I say that because I see Nairobi a little bit like building on what the PS was saying and what you're saying. Nairobi attracts a lot of innovative entrepreneurial people from globally. And I'm actually quite excited to see, I was asked to see, because France has, a big African diaspora. We have almost 10% of our population who is from African descent. And I was asked, identify the French diaspora in Nairobi. And I was looking at France, Kenya, who is French Kenyan, and I said, not many. True, but we could see a lot of French Africans actually being here, having invested in the tech space. I have in mind somebody who has created the first sovereign AI company. She's French and from Central Africa. And we can see there's many of those. And I believe we need to, as the PS say, to structure. But we give platform that the young people of France, those young African people, can actually, they speak the same language than you. They speak the language of youth, and they speak the language of AI, tech, and innovation. So the question is, how can we structure that together, that you can meet, you can innovate, you can collaborate, you can create together?
Thomas, we appreciate it. On to a final question. Sorry, that gentleman there, right behind the camera. Yeah.
Distinguished guests and my fellow members of KMUN, good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Neville Ngaira. I am a student of international relations from the Maseno chapter. Now, my question is for the ambassador of France, but it is premised. During his speech, he mentioned that the partnership between Kenya and France is at the heart of championing for reform globally. Now, my question is this. What exactly is France doing in terms of getting other partners from the global north towards implementing a better financial architecture globally, not just for innovation and tech, but when it comes to now financing countries and nation states? I believe the ambassador is in a good position to speak for the global north because France is also a member of the European Union. They have strong ties also with the US, Canada, Australia, and so on and so forth. So I believe they're in a good place to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you.
No. Thank you for your question. I think I mentioned the Africa Forward Summit and the G7 are just also a continuation of the work we've been doing together with Kenya on that matter. It started, I think, in June 2023. We did the Paris Pact for the People and the Planet, and then we went to Nairobi for the Africa Climate Action Summit. And basically the premise of that conversation is that nobody should choose between climate preservation and economic development. You should not have to choose between preserving the planet and basically creating wealth and industrializing. So it's a difficult conversation, but basically it boils down to, and I'm not talking about private sector here, even though it is important, it's about reforming the IMF and the World Bank, how they support. It has been mentioned just energy transition in the global south, because the global south has not been contributing to global emission, and yet to the point of the PS, countries in Africa don't want to industrialize using fossil fuel as the industrial world did. So how do you factor that in? And I think it's a lot about also reform of, well, it's a bit technical, but I think since you're in the model of the United Nations, I'm sure you're aware of that. It's the reform of the multilateral development banks and how you prioritize just energy transition in your financing schemes. And so it's a broad conversation. It's not an easy one. I must say, the global north, as you call it, is not aligned. But certainly as France, as Europe, will try to leverage our European influence and partners to push that conversation forward. There's concrete examples, frankly speaking, and it may be less in Kenya, because Kenya is already very virtuous in terms of energy production. 90% of your energy is from renewable, which, by the way, gives you an edge on AI, because AI's data center are very energy consuming. And so investor in AI will be looking at the carbon footprint, and I believe Kenya has an edge on that. But some other countries in Africa have more of an energy mix based on fossil, or even worse than fossil, charcoal. And so we have designed, together with like-minded partners, programs whereby it's a transition, so it's not going to happen overnight. But countries go from having a charcoal or a coal producing energy to more renewables. And through different development instruments, we start putting that. I can quote like South Africa, for example, but also Senegal, who has discovered major gas reserves, and how do you use that to channel it in a more green way. So it's not only conversation at the global level, it's also you design country-specific program to fund energy transition in Africa.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much for your engagement. We appreciate it. We need to wrap up the session. So just one question, and it's to Lenani. Simon has brought up the fact that it would also be useful to have some kind of Africa-France diplomacy platform that could endure beyond the summit, not just for the Africa Forward Summit, but something that will serve the youth beyond the summit. And is there anything in the works for that? Perhaps you can tell us if you're working on anything like that, and you can also tell us if the KMUN will be invited to participate in the Africa Forward Summit, and yeah.
Okay. As I mentioned, initially, we're working on a framework that gives the whole sort of centering is leverage. Yeah. One of the most incredible things, obviously, with working with this office, you might be maybe a super young person. You might not have experience, but the thing with the ministry, without I've realized, a lot of people they're willing to put you so that could be your initial sort of stepping stone into sort of the larger objective that we think young Africans can sort of like help this. So yesterday I had a session with the Secretary General on how we could, for instance, work with now the MUN. So we do hope like we'll be able to like ascend into like our framework. Then we find, we discussed earlier on some form of like institutionalization, how we could coordinate that. Yeah.
No, if we're sort of wrapping up, let me say first, thank you for all the very pertinent and sometimes uncomfortable questions, but I think that's why we are here. I think it's been truly enlightening. I think we will reflect also because, you know, as much, I think we're doing the same, our leaders will be doing the same thing in a couple of weeks as well. So it's interesting to see the mood, and I think we'll report that to our principals. I think about structuring how I mean, MUN are represented in the summit. I think we need to have a conversation with the PS. I'm personally very, very open. I think we should find a way to have some of you being present. And we can do it through the youth event where President Ruto, President Macron would be on stage. Obviously, it's a Pan-African event, so we need to give space also for other young people from Africa, but you know, we're in Kenya, so we need to hear also the Kenyan voice. So we'll be working and we're discussing with the PS how we will structure that. I think there's also a side event, and I'm going to ask my team to be in touch also with your team PS. There's a social and innovative camp that our main development agency is putting up during the summit, but I think could be also a platform for some of you guys to come and interact with other young people of Africa and France. And so I believe we need to find pathways for some of you to be part of the summit, and when appears to Kotiari, we can have this conversation and see how we do it.
Wow, thank you so much.
Maybe just to finalize the discussion on behalf of KMUN on what Erica said, I'm still pushing on the hub actually very much, because it's going to open us to a lot of strategic partnerships, a lot of engagement with strategic partners, is to now open ourselves to more global minds we have as part of KMUN and open the youth more in terms of.
Thank you so much, everybody, PS and Balozi. Alapelpi, if you don't mind, to remember this occasion. And lastly, before the lapelpines, I was wondering if you would like to come and say hi.
Hi, thank you so much for letting me speak. I participated this year and last year in the first MS KMUN and in the 32nd MSMUN. It's also such an experience to participate in these events, and so exciting to see these pertinent questions for my father and many other political figures. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much and congratulations. So if you would actually come back, sorry, we have a lapel pin for you too, so please. You're welcome.
yangu tu ni Keynote ya kujaza watoto majina zao wengine na mahali mimi shahidi
We also have some small gifts. Three? Yeah, for all of us. One more gift. If the other panelists would join them, please, Lunani, Vicky. Okay, thank you so much. That marks the end of our panel. So if you take your seats, we're going to have a very brief energizing interlude, and then we'll continue.
Who is that guy? Nimrudishie charger.
Kindly settle down. We're going to have one last session with the PS because he has to leave. Quiet.
Which one? You know, none of things you're around, you're real good girls, I'm bringing you down, but come to the bed, I'll fling you around. What? These guys can't make songs for y'all, that trust me, this how the single shit down. For anyone that's bringing you down, see how you're doing the thing right now. Yeah, all the girls that came for the shoot, come put two hands for the DJ boot, and wind your waist for the real good dude, and you want to send to your ex, which one?
Okay guys, let's settle down please. We finished the session. Everybody please be seated.
God forbid the girls trying to have fun. I got ex if you want to take her. You want to have sex if you want to make up. Which one? Which one? Got a fairy thing and I got which one? A G-up thing that I bring snitch round and I got good girl snitch one. Too many girls now I got switch one. Turn the whole town to a 20.
Kindly be seated. We're about to finish. If you're standing, please find a seat.
I got a chopstick for your one ton. Tell me what you want, what you really want. Coin in the slot, just the jackpot. Hey, all the girls that's here for the truth, come put two hands on the DJ booth and wind your waist for the 6-side you.
Okay, so Rod here from KMUN is going to take us through the next session. Go ahead, Rod.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. How are you feeling? How are we feeling? I'd request everyone to please stand, stretch, say hi to your neighbor, and then remain standing. Everyone, please stand, please stand. Okay, so in the spirit of being Gen Z and being a TikTok holic, I want us to do one small TikTok together. DJ? Any dances? I'm waiting for. Waiting. Music, please. Okay, you'll do as I do. It's a simple one. Yeah.
All the girls that's here for the truth, put both hands on a DJ booth. Why you waste to the big man time when I get too stiff cause I take you around good hard. Baby, the fuck you down, make you feel so sweet. Wanna spin you around if I pull it in, I bring you around. One more take. Which one? You're not letting things go around. All the girls that shit for the truth come put both hands on the DJ booth. Why you waste to the big man time when I get too stiff cause I can't see around good hard. Baby, the fuck you down, but you feel so sweet. Wanna spin you around if I pull it in, I bring you around.
Okay, now you want to record. The moves is as simple as that. You just turn around and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So we want to record. No, it ends there. It's that short. Yeah, that was practice, yes. Now we record. DJ?
All the girls that shit for the truth come put both hands on the DJ booth. Why you waste to the big man time when I get too stiff cause I can't see around good hard. Baby, the fuck you down, make you feel so sweet. Wanna spin you around if I pull it in, I'll bring you around. If I go to the bar, I'll bring you around. Which one?
Okay, thank you so much. PS Ambassador Simon, please let's walk them out as we prepare for our second panel. Please don't leave for the students. It's going to be very enticing, very brief, but for all of us to participate. So if I could, for our second panelist, Bev. You can have a seat, sorry, just 1 second. Kindly do not leave the room. DJ, reduce the music. Kindly do not leave the room. We want to start our second panel. So, good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. So, our second panel is the Pre-Global Trust Summit, a youth panel. And my panelists for today would be, number one is Miss Beverly from the State Department of Foreign Affairs. Let's clap for her. Our second panelist is Mr. Rob Burnett, the founder and the chair of Shujaz Incorporation. He is a 2 Emmy award-winning network of social ventures that uses storytelling, research, and data to engage millions of young people across East Africa. Kindly let's clap for him. Our third panelist is Dr. William Muriizi. He is a senior faculty in entrepreneurship, strategy, family business, and an active researcher and a management consultant at the Strathmore Business School. Kindly let's clap for him as he comes to the front. Our first panelist is Miss Mercy Nyaga, who is a Pan-African youth champion at One Africa. She's passionate about youth development and leadership, which she actively promotes through advocacy and youth representation. Kindly let's clap for her as she comes to the front. I'm not feeling the bigger clap. Our fifth panelist, she's coming. Our fifth panelist is Miss Brittany Vusha, a delegate of the Kenya Model United Nations
one of our very own, and she happens to work with Amnesty International Kenya. Kindly clap for her as she comes. And our last panelist is Ms. Makena Murioki, Third Secretary, State Department of Foreign Affairs. And Ms. Makena Murioki is currently serving under the Office of the Special Envoy for the African Union Institutional Reform. Kindly let's clap for her as she comes to the front. Deputy Secretary, Advocate at the Kenya School of Law. Our session will be brief. My first question will go to Ms. Beverly. Seeing that the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs is hosting the Global Trust Summit this year in August in collaboration with Strasbourg University, how can youth-led platforms such as the Kenya Model United Nations and the Global Trust Summit take part in shaping the next generation of ethical leaders, and how best should we come in? Is the microphone? Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Abigail, for those questions. As you rightfully mentioned, the State Department is organizing a Global Trust Summit. Now, the origin of this ambition is a growing recognition that there's a global trust deficit pandemic. This is permeating global institutions, our multilateral institutions. We have seen this, for example, through the deliberate disempowerment of institutions such as the UN, which were historically established to set global norms and standards that all nations were meant to follow through this rule-based kind of cooperation. So increasingly, we have seen this shift towards more results-oriented diplomacy and foreign policy. So nations are no longer interacting on the basis of shared values, shared principles. It's now more about transactional relationships. We've seen that through conditioning of trade benefits, conditioning of aid. We've also seen that through, the rise of proxy conflicts that are taking place across Africa, which are by and large driven by competing global superpowers. So right now we have a very fragile global landscape where nations are not really able to collectively solve global challenges because they're not able to trust each other. And this issue is something that is also creeping into our national levels, where citizens do not trust government institutions or institutions in general. So we're now seeing citizens really asking even the legitimacy of our institutions, the value of our institutions. So as a State Department, the vision of the Global Trust Summit was to bring together global leaders and citizens to deliberate on the drivers of this trust deficit at global levels and also at national levels. And now recognizing that the youth constitute the majority of the population, yet are highly underrepresented in most of these institutions, even multilateral institutions. Youth are really underrepresented, yet they're the majority of the population. So how can we amplify youth voices in these different spaces and in these different platforms to ensure that their priorities are heard, that they are felt, and that they are acted on. So platforms such as KMUN, I think I'd like to start by commending the leadership of KMUN and just reflecting that I think KMUN goes a step further to instill values of accountability. The thinking is that, you know, through these young leaders who are empowered through the KMUN platform, that you are instilling values of accountability that will shape the next generation of leaders. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Brittany. And if I must add, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been very receptive to every time we've reached out, we've called, and any collaboration. So that is the first step in taking part in these conversations and pushing them forward. My next question will be to Mr. Rob. So in your view, how can investments in youth leadership, civic engagement, and social accountability contribute to rebuilding trust between citizens and government? And echoing the words of the PS, the vertical trust has been eroded so much over the recent years.
Thank you very much. A great question. So I think we as Shujaz, which some of you may know from that magazine and story that we've been telling for a few years, we've been out talking to young people. I think we've conducted like 4,000 interviews in the last few months. So we've really been trying to understand, what do young people want from government, and what are the origins of trust? The kind of trust that the summit is going to be concerned with later this year. So, as Beverly says, this room is full of young leaders, and many of you are going to be taking roles in the leadership of this country in future. So what skills do you need? What are the qualities that you need in order to secure the trust of the people that you'll be leading? And I think we've done a bit of work on that. And so I've got a few bits of advice. So the first thing about trust is, I think someone once said that trust is earned very slowly. It's like putting coins in a jar. It accumulates very slowly, but it's easy to spend it all at once and then it's gone. So the process of building trust is a slow one. And it's something that can't be taken for granted. It can't be taken lightly. And there are some skills that you need in order to be able to acquire that trust. And so one of the things that we've heard from everyone we've been speaking to, from young people across Kenya, is really the desire for fairness from leaders, and accountability from leaders, and justice from leaders. So the idea that people get jobs on merit, not on connections, that when crimes are committed, they're punished, there's punishment and justice is administered. And actually understanding as a young leader how to ensure that those are delivered is an important priority, because that's what the voters of tomorrow and today want. That's what they expect from their leaders, people who will deliver fairness and justice. But what also young people have told us is that they need spaces to have conversations. They can't just be by magic. It's not just on Instagram that we talk to our leaders. Leaders also need to open up space for dialogue. And it's something we've been doing recently as Shujaz by holding what we call Mike Yetus, opportunities for young people to meet leaders. In fact, we're in Iten in Elgeyo Marakwet tomorrow with a lot of the local leaders meeting young people who have been participating in surveys. So creating spaces where young people and leaders can meet and have a conversation is also fundamental. And the final thing is, as a leader, is to look for proof that leadership is being done well, to find evidence that people are succeeding or failing, and to ensure that that evidence is seen. Because we need data. We need to know that things are being done well. We can't leave it to chance. So as leaders, your job is to find that evidence and to promote it and to draw attention to it so that we know, are we going forward or not? Thank you.
Just a follow-up. Since you're interacting with youth, I'd ask what competencies should we build to ensure that this, whatever message you're passing to our leaders, is being received as it should?
So I think it's important to know how government works. And I think that's one of the things that the Model UN is very good at. It's important to know how to take your concerns to leaders and how to demonstrate what people want. So the democratic process is all about that, isn't it? It's about saying, well, the majority of people want a certain thing. So it's upon leaders to deliver that. And it's best achieved with data, I think. That if you can, and so one of the things we've been doing as Shujaz is surveying young people. Can we gather data and then take that data into conversations with leaders? There's something that happens when you have data. When two people meet to discuss their opinion, it's hard to make progress. When two people meet to discuss data, to discuss evidence, then the conversation changes. On how to take your argument to leadership.
Thank you so much. My next question will be declined.
Good morning. Right, but also acknowledging and participation in our. So how many youth are there participating actively and also engaging in the governance and leadership of this nation? The fourth one is about accountability and transparency. When we are talking here about ideas, sharing our opinions, and I like what Robert said, if we sit here and just share our opinions without having to discuss about what are the facts that we need to account to, what is it that we need to be very transparent about, and institutions and governance being able to acknowledge where there are mistakes done and what needs to be done right, then we start having genuine conversations that take us forward. So for me, fundamentally, I think these are very critical. We should not just be talking about them, but living them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. William. The next question will be to Ms. Masinyaga. Need to do to restore public faith? Can the youth meaningfully participate in that?
Stand is that as per our constitution, as per our and by the people, and if anyone takes time, because we are supposed to elect, and for any of the independent then you'll understand that the most basic start the president of Kenya, if you're not a Kenyan. I mean, the finance bill was not affecting Russians, it was affecting us Kenyans. So that ownership, that's where we have to begin, owning our citizenship. I was coincidentally able to see on social media an old video where how many love the Kenyan bracelets, and it's your patriotism symbol, remembrance, memoir, you know, because diplomats and guests, we give them memoirs, but to ourselves, because we're not going anywhere. This is our homeland. And so they were talking about how they'll stop wearing these bracelets, and it's an activist. And I was wondering, so are we throwing the baby with the bathwater? That's what we have to think about this mistrust. That, you know what? It's a marriage that does not have divorce option. you are Kenyan by birth, you are staying a Kenyan. So you cannot put yourself in this bubble, and neither can the leaders, because again, they want to get into office, we are electing them. Those who want appointments, they are getting from the people we elected. So we are in a symbiotic relationship. And how is it going to work sustainably? Number one, rule of law. Both the leaders, but I've been asking myself, are we Chapter 6 worthy citizens? And, we have these accountability standards to our leaders. How have we held ourselves to standard as voters? IBC has something called Code of Conduct. Code of Conduct for aspirants, for voters, and then now the Constitution will handle those who get into office. So we have to really ask ourselves, are we Chapter 6 citizens? And also we must redefine Kenyan leadership, because we need these leaders to understand that, yes, you're a leader, but you're a Kenyan. You're a Kenyan who is also like the voters, the citizens, the minors, the under 18 that make 49% of our population. All of us are in this one boat and have to follow the Constitution of Kenya. And no matter your status in Kenya, and that's where we have to aim for actually. It's not just about a new parliament, because you still have a judiciary. You have a public service with 800,000 plus, and add county governments, and add the contractors, add the tenderpreneurs, add the private sector, add the civil society. So this whole family called Kenya, that there is no divorcing, it's till death do us apart, everybody, no matter your status. We have to have rule of law. And from it will come everything we want. Patriotism, the 6 values that are indicated by the diplomacy department, the Chapter 6 of our Constitution, and then of course, good governance, justice, fairness, all the things we are yearning for. If only we understood our Constitution, if only we understood the laws, or at least the governing principles of how we are going to coexist, no matter your tribe or status. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mercy. Our next question will be to Ms. Makena Murioki, and the question touches on what practical steps can we as the youth take to rebuild trust between the citizens and the government. And I can say Ms. Mercy has alluded to one by saying we should be personally accountable. So what more?
I think it's important to acknowledge that rebuilding is a two-way street, right? So as much as Mercy has said, we have expectations, we also have something that we can do as the youth in and of ourselves. The process begins at a molecular level. We pay attention to the larger picture, but not the smaller picture. What does your constituency look like? What does your country look like if we're looking at it from a global perspective? And how can you participate? How can you expect accountability and transparency concerning the matters that you care about, whether it's education or facilities, infrastructure, so on and so forth? I think also participation is important. It's easy to talk, but are you participating in processes that then enable you to effect the change or the development or the reform that you'd like to see? And so engage with civil society, engage with your local leaders, give your input, and not just through spoken word, but written word. Paper carries a lot of weight. So send your letters, send the documentation that you need to, ask the questions that you need to, and engage regularly. You see, if I know your face and you come and ask me questions, then I can answer you, and we're building a relationship from that point. And so it's engaging and using our voices consistently and constructively, and staying informed about what's happening and what we're interested in, and creating spaces and programs that facilitate the interests of the youth so that all these things can merge in an apex that reflect our society, that's reflective of what we believe in and what we'd like to see in the future. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. And I think that's a challenge to everyone. We are always complaining about what the government has not done, but not what we're doing at a molecular level. I think you saw this trending video during the floods where persons were throwing litter on the drainage systems. And as much as we know we may not have the best drainage systems in Nairobi, but if you're clogging the drainage system, then what are you doing at a personal level? Additionally, do we know pending bills in Parliament that require public participation? In the morning, we've been talking about AI and innovation. We know we have a robotics bill in Parliament, and we are the young people using tech. So who else to give input? So that's a good challenge. My next question will be to Ms. Brittany Vusha at the end. So in the recent years, we've seen weakening of multilateralism, and the policy discussions are now more of transactional rather than problem solving. So in your view, what are the structural drivers of this global trust deficit, and how are they undermining international cooperation?
Okay, thank you, Abby, for that question. And to answer your question, I will refer to the international legal order. And after the World War II in 1945, after the formation of the United Nations, and when you look at the UN Security Council, especially the countries that make the 5 veto power states, we see that the global south and the Africans are not represented. And yet the Africans are made up of over 1.4 billion of our population worldwide. So that raises a question, and it's depends when they're making these resolutions. And secondly, I'll look at the hegemonic bias of these powerful states. For example, in the current administration of the US government, as Ms. Beverly has said, they only follow international laws when it's beneficial to them, and they don't advocate for peaceful cooperation. This greatly hinders a trust in these global institutions, greatly weakening multilateralism, because it shows that countries do not really care about...
You can retain the microphone. This is a general question to everyone. I'll start with Brittany as we move. So in an ideal setting, if you could reimagine a world where citizens had complete trust in their governments, what would such a society look like, and what would it have taken to build that level of trust?
Okay, an ideal government would be where there is accountability, especially for the leaders and the decisions they make. There should be robust systems whereby these leaders are held accountable for every decision they make. For example, during the protests for the Finance Bill 2024, we didn't really see any repercussions for the MPs who are trying to pass the bill, or especially the people who are behind making these laws. They don't suffer the repercussions as the public do. So it would be an ideal government to see where they are held accountable for their actions.
So that's Brittany. Ms. Beverly?
So I think both as a citizen of Kenya and also public servant, if you look at kind of the enablers of trust, I think that's where we need to start and make deliberate investments in that. So I would want a government that is openly accountable, a government that upholds rule of law, fairness, equality, and also is
consistent. So consistent means you are consistent with the promise that you have made to the people. If you look at the campaigns, manifestos, that is the government's promise to the people. The people do not promise to the government. It's the other way around. And we now expect that in your current government administration, that you're going to follow the promises that you made. We do not come up with, for example, development blueprints. That comes from the government. So if trust was to be rebuilt, I would say start by being consistent and just keeping your promises. Thank you. Yes?
I hope we're all going to say the same thing. I think from the research we've been doing recently, what we've heard over and over again is that young Kenyans across this country want to see a kind of loop, a circle, where they are being listened to and that they feel as if leaders aren't just pretending, but they're truly listening to them, that their concerns are being acted upon, and that leaders are going back to their places of work and implementing solutions to the problems that they've heard. And that evidence is being shared as proof that progress is being made, that those promises are being kept. And I think that is the circle of trust, ultimately, that people feel they're being listened to, leaders are seen to respond, and evidence is played back to say, we did it, or if we didn't do it, we're still trying, and we're overcoming these unforeseen problems. So that's the loop, and we all have a job to do to make that loop happen.
That I think a society like that would reflect commitment to the people, because our nation is built from people. And so yes, there are national interests, but there are also individualistic interests that are shared by the people based on shared principles, values, needs, wants. And so in a society where trust has been rebuilt, the functions would be reflective of their people, their productivity, their progress, their development. And so that would work cohesively to give the people indeed what they want, but then because they're happy, then a better country.
Right. I think for me, an ideal situation is whereby I'll talk about, I know so many of us are thinking about business and innovation and starting something for yourself. So I think for me, I'll start by that, where there is inclusivity, equity in economic activity. Whether it's getting a job or whether it's starting something that I like, I want to be in a position where I can do it without having to think about, do I have a godfather or do I have a parent who knows someone who can get me to where I want to be. Secondly, but for me, accountability comes in the form, can they resign when they haven't met promise? Can they actually take accountability? We talk about freedom of expression and being able to do what you need to do within your office, but when you fail, can you take responsibility and step aside? Because we are not short of leaders who can actually do the right thing. That's how we build trust systems. That's how we see that our voices as young people and youth are being heard. Because what we are seeing is a lot of explanation, a lot of words without the evidence to show what is it exactly that you have accomplished. Thank you.
I think that's profound, but why are they not stepping down? Impunity. If there was rule of law, and if there was meaningful participation, because the twin working is there has to be rule of law. And that's actually what will legitimize a government and avoid any lawlessness situation, like the mess in parliament being, a stormed parliament mess being wanted to be taken. And once that mess is taken, you may as well just do re-election of the MPs because of power change. So 2024 protest was not a joke, but how to not find ourselves there again. That there would be rule of law, but that can't be sustained when you have the other party ignorant. In court, if I accuse you and you don't show up to court, the judge can go ahead and rule without you. And that's actually the situation we must get ourselves in our yearning of justice. We must find ourselves in the rooms that matter. We must harness our voice for good in a united and constructive manner. And it's going to be constructive in just what he has said, data. So like this forum, is there going to be a communique? Is there going to be a statement, because there are so many opinions, and that's why we have public participation. One rally will never be enough. No one leader, I don't know, who can visit every household of their constituency. I don't think it's possible. So we have channels, we have the county government function 14, which is civic education. And if the masses were educated, if they understood how all the tools, the beautiful tools that our constitution already has put in place, a platform that we ought to utilize effectively, and that gaps are coming because of ignorance, then add impunity, then add self-sabotage. To some extent, you cannot recall a leader. Our constitution is very funny. You cannot recall years after election, you cannot recall 2 years to the next election. So you have only 1 year dash, and that window, you crossed it with 1.5 months around there to the next election. So we must that have not delivered. I am not understanding how, and it's fine to the leader, because the 5 years I was trying, as if our lives are tries X. 5 years tries X. And then you, in the name of mtu wetu, mwizi wetu, our leaders are having an impunity disease. As citizens, we have a self-ignorance combined with sabotage, combined with maybe trauma that I don't know came from where. Maybe 207, we haven't healed. That tribalism, we have to cure it, and after that, we cure the self-sabotage trauma of mwizi wetu audacity. And then you cry during a finance bill. And that finance bill, mind you, the proceedings start November, December. Who here in this hall does not know how to make their way to KICC? I've seen, she says government development plans, they make it here, there, CIDP of your county. Let's start there. If you had floods affect you, dimples cannot unclog a drainage. Development plans. I'm a Nairobi voter, do not quote me. But development plans, national government, yes, it might be hectic here, there, but we have devolution. If you knew the strength of those 14 functions, if those 14 functions, by the way, would work, Maisha London, that's why the United States is as is. Those states have mayors, have their own defense attorney. There's a way they have brought to the people with their unique, unanimous tribe. So is the problem really ignorance? And after we cure ignorance and civic education, if they're not giving us, we go for it. Especially the educated, the privileged. There is no sacred cow. The pedestrians were drowning. Gari zilizima. Class is not going to save anybody, and luxury. Look at the Middle East. Is luxury. That's a country that you'll find gold being hawked. Try hawking gold in Nairobi. But look at where their country is because of governance. So the issue of good governance, that we have our role to play and our leaders also, whom guess what? 2027, you have your chance to choose and choose wisely.
Okay, mic drop. Thank you for that. We'll now take 2 questions from the audience. Let me stand up. As I walk to the podium, I just wanted to echo what Mercy has said. The funny thing with our laws is that you are allowed to recall Member of Parliament, MCA, but then they are not barred from vying for that post again. So if you remove me, I vie again, and then you vote me in, and I continue doing a bad job. So how are we really holding these leaders accountable? 2 questions. Oh my God. 1, you and you.
Thank you. Thank you for that amazing discussion. It's really helped me as a young leader to make better decisions. I just have a small question for the last speaker. How will you encourage young leaders, especially leaders that come from a third world country, to overcome the fear of taking after leaders of the older generation who destroyed or degraded a country economically or through tribalism? Thank you.
I'm guided. Is it now, or you want to take more questions?
Can respond.
Okay. Third world. Well, first we comfort ourselves a little. G7 is happening, we had, and France is hosting. I don't know how old the democracy of France is, but the United States, I'm aware, which is going to host G20, that at least South Africa somehow gives African presence, and AU we are going to see. They have been a democracy for 250 years. And if you read their history, and then read our history, and then read where in 1963 was the EU, had it even been formed? Was it formed before or after the African Union? When you look at those history and data, then you realize power to the people. You will advance to the depth of the mentality of the people. We once upon a time, and I've been to Seoul of South Korea. Once upon a time, I shudder that once upon a time gave them aid. Today, that country doesn't have dustbins. I mean, my governor is overworking. When I walked that place, it was super clean, but there was no dustbin. And people actually pay. Like every trash you do, you pay. The same way you can go to these vending machines and you click, put money, pay for parking, put money, and you get your soda. They put money to give away their trash. No one is littering. So some things, let's just accept. We are going to have to self-reflect. As a third world that wants to make it, that wants to have our own way. We are not trying to become Asian tigers or USA. No, we are on our timeline, and there's a book out there, 60 years of diplomacy of Kenya. Let's learn our history. Let's learn the good, the things we got right. Because actually, once upon a time, our GDP, the economic growth, the time factories were booming. There's nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun in the 21st century. Whether it's cotton that they're reviving, whether it's energy. I mean, I come from Embu. There's Masinga Dam. those things you learnt in class 5 and 7, we were supposed to have 7 dams for hydro. We built 5. Where are the other 2? So we start with our history. We start the very development plans that Malaysia and even that Singapore came to benchmark in Kenya. So guess what? We don't even need to benchmark. We actually need to read our history, make use of our expertise, make use of our experts. And like I said, the day there is rule of law, everything can function. The judiciary, the private sector, everybody needs to be on top. It's not just 1,427 MCAs, 290 MPs, 47 women reps. Those are too few brains, please. Try a wheelbarrow. Try a wheelbarrow of 55 million Kenyans, and you want those few to entrust all our lives and future. It's not possible. We all have to participate. And like I said, our country, I think we are trying. If you look at East Africa, we are trying media, constitution, whatnot. What we have, we start there, and we'll be fine. If we are truthful, just to ourselves, and then go for it with our leaders.
Thank you, moderator, for giving me this opportunity. I can assure you I was burning to ask a question, and now that I have the opportunity, I would first like to thank the panelists for their intellectual views. I can assure you that every view has triggered at least something in my mind. But before I ask my question, I would like to support what you said in regards to impunity and ignorance. To quote the words of Lumumba, where he said, "We keep exchanging a set of hyenas with a set of foxes, wondering why the sheep keep disappearing." Now, my question is in regards to the trust systems that we have talked about. Cognizant of the fact that diplomacy is built on trust systems, what do we do to get back to the state we were if that trust system is destroyed? For example, a prominent example is what is going on right now, that we are calling the piecemeal war or the World War III. And this is something that was triggered as a result of the violation of a diplomatic negotiation that was going on. And my question is now, for example, Iran justified in retaliating as much as necessary because the trust system was destroyed? Thank you so much. My name is Timothy Kamore.
I think at the very basis of the global order is the respect for sovereignty of states, right? And it's the core of what you study at the UN, at the African Union, on any multilateral basis. And so when that is infringed on, it becomes a very complicated conversation. But as enshrined in international law, if a member state's sovereignty is violated, then it is up to them how they choose to react. And you asked, how can we get back there? It's about the value that we place on countries. So one country can't have greater value because they have more money or bigger weapons, right? Because these countries are made of people, and it's the value of those people's lives and their systems and their nations. So until we get back to the place where all the countries that we look at and interact with have the same value in our eyes, and therefore the same amount of respect is accorded to them, we will not be able to attain that.
Okay, thank you for that. Our panel session has come to a close. It was very brief, as you've heard. So it's now the awarding, and we take a photo.
Mr. Rob, please. Photographer, are we good? If you would kindly. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Mr. William, please. Miss Mercy, please. Miss Vusha, please. Miss McKenna. Miss Abigail. Miss Beverly, please. And if you would know, Miss Beverly has been the mind and the brains behind this, so if you could give her a hand clap. So all the panelists, if you would please come for a group photo.
If I may pay tribute and encourage any youth who feels depressed as a Kenyan or whatever challenges, I did MUN for 7 years actually, and my school was actually down this road, BUN. And so please be encouraged. I did it for 7 years. High school EMUN, left high school, gap year, decided, okay, let me try KMUN. And by 2021, I finished as Undersecretary General handling youth engagement for Sub-Saharan Africa International MUN. So be encouraged what you're doing. And when I say use what you have, you're going to have to deal with this world and your own life. Is the glass half full or half empty? It's half empty, fine.